Hey, this is Mike at Cleveland Aircraft Tool, and today we are going to talk about deburring, and hole deburring specifically. This is the third in a three-part video series on deburring. The first was Scotch-Brite wheels and pads, which would be abrasive deburring. We talked about, in the second part, about edge deburring using blade-type tools. And in this third segment, we'll talk about these tools for deburring holes. Now, in general, we're talking about holes that are less than 3/16 of an inch. Occasionally, some of these tools can be used up to 5/16. But in general, 3/16 and less hole deburring, you use a rotary type tool. And you see here in the frame there are a variety of tools, which we'll go over as we go through this. So the way this video will be organized is we'll talk about the two basic different types of cutting tools in the rotary tools, and then we'll talk about how to hold them. And then finally talk about how to do proper deburring. So let's get into it with the different types of tools. So I'll switch to a close-up camera here, and here we have two different types of tools. This one is a multi-flute tool, and it doesn't matter how many flutes it is, anywhere from 3 flutes, 5 flutes. This thing is not focusing for me, sorry. Try one at a time. Have to force it to choose. There we go. So this is a multi-flute tool, and obviously this one has 3 flutes, but sometimes you see them with 4 flutes, 5 flutes. It doesn't matter any more than 1 flute behaves the same way. And what that does is when you put this into the hole and it's turning, there's usually one edge that's really cutting at a time, and it's kind of bouncing around a little bit. So when you use any kind of multi-flute tool, and you'll notice this with your countersink cutters as well, is you'll get a little bit of chatter in the bottom of the hole as it's deciding which tooth to use to cut at any given time based on how you're holding it, the pressure and such. So I'm not a big fan of the multi-flute tools. This one works fairly well. That's why we carry it. But in general, what I like the most are the single flute tools, which again, if we can make it focus here. So what I like is the single flute tool like this, where there's only one cutting edge. As it goes around, that one edge maintains contact with the hole all the time. So there is no chatter at all. They just peel off the burr as they go around. So the single flute and the multi-flute are the two basic types of hole deburring tools. So going back to this assortment of tools here, the multi-flute tool, like I showed, actually comes in this kit here. So it comes with the handle, it comes with an extension, it comes with a bit. And what this does is it allows you to put your countersink into a hole and rotate it like this. Then if you have a place like the inside of a wing rib, for instance, that you need an extension, it also comes with this extension that you can assemble the tool, reach down into an area, and do the same thing. So it's pretty handy, takes no batteries. Pull it out of your toolbox and use it that way. The reason that we have the separate pieces are that you can obviously, we sell the multi-flute bit separately, and I'll have all of the part numbers and such in the comments. We sell the multi-bit flute bit separately for a replacement for the set, or you can put it into the extension that we sell separately. And that allows you to chuck it into a drill here and turn it that way. So that would be a normal drill, like a 3-jaw chuck type drill. You can grab onto the end of it here. Then we also have this extension, which is just a hex extension, 1/4-inch hex, so it fits in any cordless screwdriver with a threaded end to accept that same bit. So, let's see, one more extension that we have. This was made specifically for the RV14 battery box, I believe, and we'd have to check the plans to make sure that's still needed, but there was some countersinks that were deep down inside this box that you couldn't reach without an extension. So this is just an extension that has a 1/4-inch 28-pitch thread on the end of it that holds this 3-flute countersink, or 3-flute deburring tool, but it was intended to hold the countersink cutters. So that's what this extension's for, but it does work with the 3-flute deburring tool in a drill. So it's just a 3/8. It's a 5/16 shaft on the end of here. So those are the tools that we have to hold the 3-flute cutter that we sell separately. Now I mentioned the cordless screwdriver that this one works with. I'm going to get back to that in just a minute, because I'm going to go over to the single hole deburring tool. And this one we have custom made for us. We used to sell a bit similar to this that was Loctited in the end of a 1/4-inch hex shaft. So we recently have started having these pieces made for us that has the 1/4-inch hex shaft built onto the end of the deburring tool. Now again, this is a single flute deburring tool, so as it turns around, that cutting edge stays on the material all the time, leaving a nice, consistent, and non-jumpy or non-chattery surface to it. All of these tools are 100 degrees, so you can use them to countersink with, although without a pilot and without a Microsoft stop depth gauge, that's pretty risky to do. Anyway, this is made also to go into a cordless screwdriver, so it turns nice and slow, and then we have an extension for that. So if you need to reach down into a deeper hole, like the backside of a rib, for instance, you can just put it in an extension. This is just a normal 1/4-inch hex to 1/4-inch hex extension. And then finally we sell the same bit as this in the form of just a smooth round shank. So you would have to use this in a 3-jaw chuck in a drill or a drill press. And really the drill press is a nice place to use this, because you can put it in the drill press, set it up so the drill press is turning slow, and then just come along and with your work and kind of just present it to the bit instead of having to bring the bit along the row of holes. So a couple times I've mentioned the cordless screwdriver. This is not one that I recommend. This one here is quite heavy, and the reason that I just happen to have this one, so I grabbed it. But the reason that we recommend having a really cheap cordless screwdriver, and you'll probably go through 2 or 3 of them in the building process. This one's a pretty good one. It has a nice gear reduction in the end of here, which makes it heavy. And when you're deburring things, you don't want it to be heavy. The weight of the tool actually causes you to press too hard and over deburr. So it's what I grabbed for an example. But it's not what I would recommend. The point of this is that it turns nice and slow. So this one's about 60 RPM. Maybe it even says on there. 180 RPM on this one. But you want them to turn very slow because you don't want to go too fast and over deburr it. But you also want to, like I said, you want the tool to be light. So I have a couple really old ones that aren't made anymore that are my favorite. I wish that we could get more of them. But if you go to Walmart even and just get the cheapest, lightest weight one you can. The reason that these are better, more expensive, is because of the gear reduction, and it makes it more powerful to put in screws. But that's not what we're using it for. So we want one that hardly functions as a cordless screwdriver. We want it to just turn the deburring tool. Skill makes a good one I've seen at Walmart. They're really lightweight. You do want a rechargeable one because you'll use it so much. What did they say? 14,000 rivets in an airplane times 2 sides times 2 parts at least per rivet. So there's a lot of holes that get deburred. So that's why we like the hex, is we can put them in the cordless screwdriver and just go along a row. I have an old video here from a class that we used to teach. Let me play that here. So here you see in that screwdriver that I like, it's nice and small and lightweight. This is the old version of that bit, but you just go along and you touch each hole. And you can even leave the tool running in between. But it makes it pretty quick and easy. This one I've always teased is the carpal tunnel tool, because you have that many holes that you're doing this to deburr them. It's fast and it's easy, but I think it's too tiring. It wears you out. So the cordless tool, you just touch the button and just touch along each hole. So again, this comes as a set. Is a DB46, and then the individual extension and the hex holder. So if you wanted to use the 3 flute bit in a cordless screwdriver, that's how you would do that. And then this is kind of a anomaly tool, but it does hold that 3 flute cutter in a drill. And then the single flutes are available in the hex or the straight shank, and then there's a adapter for that. So let's talk a little bit more about deburring and how to use these tools. So again, back to some old videos that I had used in the class. Here's an example of it done well, a good hole deburring. So you see there's a little bit of a shiny spot there on the outside of the hole, but just barely. It's just barely detectable. And that's what you want to have for a well deburred hole. And then here you see one that the shiny spot is bigger, and that's over deburred. And the danger of doing that, especially on thin pieces, is if you do that to both sides, then you end up sharpening the center of that. You're taking material away from both sides of the piece. So here's my trusty example control surface rib. So it's very thin material. So if you take, say, 10 thousandths off this side and 10 thousandths off this side, it's almost a point where it comes to, and you don't want that. All you're trying to do is take the burr off of there. So what I do to see if it needs deburred even is I just run my finger lightly over it, and the burr will catch in the grain of your fingerprint. And if you feel that, then you know that it needs deburred. There's a burr right here that needs deburred because it's catching in my fingerprint. On the inside is where you usually feel the most burrs, and every one of those holes needs deburred on the inside. So again, in our tool kits that we sell, we put this bit in our kit, which is the DB04. It's a hex deburring tool with a single hole. We like that because it goes in the cordless screwdriver, and you just buzz along each one. I think that's all I have for hole deburring. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to shoot me an email. Make sure you like and subscribe to our channel, and share the video with others. Thanks.